I couldn't shake the feeling like I was being watched.
And you want to walk home.
I try my best not to be suspicious about it, but
And your ass want to walk home. Shut the hell up. Sup? I'm recording? I am. Now, I've been saying that so much, I do not know when I even started saying it. That's just one of her worst fears, you know? I be in the middle of a reaction and the camera just stops recording. Or it never recorded in the first place and I just lost the reaction. Jesus Christ. I'm good. Sucked up.
Back in 2015, I attended high school at an age where I was younger than most students. The reason for this was because I had skipped about 2 grades due to my parents thinking I wasn't being challenged enough.
2 grades?
To put it in basic terms, I was a smart kid and had the gift of being intelligent in my studies. Anyway, this happened the week before spring break, and I remember being in my biology class. Our teacher was going over some stuff about the examination of frogs, which sort of entertained us. As we're about halfway through the lecture, our principal, Mr. Hernandez, got on the loudspeaker and told the school we were going on lockdown. All teachers and faculty were required to lock their doors and get their students to the safest place of the room. My teacher had ordered us to move to the back of the class since we didn't have a closet. He locks the door, turns off the lights, and we wait until the all clear. I'd say we sat in total silence for a good few minutes before we hear the sound of the main doors opening from the hall.
Damn.
My thought was that it could have been police, but something told me it was anything but that. Not even a minute later, we begin to hear these deranged screams coming from down the hallway. To be honest, I wasn't sure if it was a man or a woman's voice, but whoever it was sounded like an actual lunatic. The whole class began to look at each other with terror written on their faces. One of the girls' phones in my class had gone off, and that caused everyone to become even more worried.
I would have grabbed her by the throat and said, "Come here! Come here! Come here! Ashley, you stay out of this. Sam, whatever your name is, cluck you. Come here. Come here. You want to make some noise? All right." Unlocks the door. Throw your ass out of there. Sorry. Anybody else want to go? Huh? I suggest you put your phones on silent. Put them off silent right now. Because if I hear another phone go off, that's your ass. Oh. Mind you, I'm the one being loud.
As the screaming got closer, I came to the realization that it was a man with this extremely deep voice. What he was saying still chills me to the bone. He was going door to door while banging on them, saying what he'll do when he gets in. The stuff he's saying is horrendous to the point where the majority of us are texting our parents and calling 911. He did this to every door until he eventually came to ours, going to town on it very hard.
Damn.
Thankfully, this was one of the few schools that had bulletproof doors, so I knew the chances of him getting
I feel like all schools, not even just America, should have that shit.
in were slim. Even though the doors were stable, he still gave it a good beating. The sounds of those bangs and screams will forever be burned into the back of my head. Suddenly, he straight up punches through the small glass window while trying to reach the lock from the inside. At this point, everyone is terrified to the point where my teacher had to force his arm out of the window. This thankfully seemed to work, as he then continued down the hall with those horrid screams toward the main office. However, he didn't make it far, as police did end up entering the building and restraining him with ease.
Alright.
After about an hour, our principal gave the all clear and had ended school early that day.
Oh, I was about to say, I wish you would say, y'all can go back to class now. Get the hell out of here.
The school faculty had to personally escort students safely out of the building as we didn't know who else was around. It wasn't until a week later where I learned a shocking truth as to what led up to this. The story behind why and how we got into the school will forever haunt me. As it turns out, he was being transported to a facility when he managed to rip off the frame that separates him and the driver. He knocked the driver out cold and put the vehicle to a stop right near the school where he got out and entered the building. He was insanely strong and had been off his meds for days. The driver who was transporting him was fortunately okay and was given proper treatment. Thankfully, nobody was hurt when he entered the school. After that, many parents were outside picking up their kids in a panic. My parents had gone to the school and picked me up as well, and even pulled me out for a few days. As far as I'm concerned, he was likely taken back to a mental facility and is being held there. For the next few weeks, the school had begun doing lockdown drills as a precaution. Nothing has happened since, but I just hope he's getting the proper help he needs.
I don't care about him whatsoever. As long as that nigga is locked up and I don't gotta see, and he's far away. Is that a real high school name? Corning YOLO? That can't be real. I'm not going to a school named that. As long as he's far away and locked up, I'm good, you know? And when I say far away, I mean more than like 6,000 miles away. I don't know how far that is. Like, yo, if I was the guy, like in the truck that he hurt, like I was transporting him, and I was the guy in the truck that he hurt, and I would have woke up, I would have sued me, you know, on me, cause it's like you're working with crazy. You're not working with. You're dealing with crazy ass mother cluckers. That's not right in the head. You need at least 2-3 people with you when you're transporting at all times.
This story is told in the perspective of a female.
Jesus.
This took place in the spring of 2016 in my freshman year of high school when I was around 14 or so. Around this time was the peak of the whole infamous clown sighting epidemic that spread around like wildfire. These events blew up on social media that got the attention of everyone. If you were a teen or in school around that time, you definitely know what I'm talking about. Long story short, it was the next big thing that just never went away. In my mind, I had thought that it wasn't as serious as some people thought, but little did I know, I was beyond wrong. To be exact, this happened on March 25th of 2016, where I was in my last period of the day. If I remember, I was in history class and we had just finished up an assignment on the Titanic and the history of it. At one point, I asked my teacher if I could use the restroom for a minute since I had completed the project early. Being the sweet and charming teacher she was, she said yes and gave me the pass. The restroom near my class was being cleaned, so I had to use the one on the other side of the building. As I'm making my way over to the other hallway, I look down the hall and see, out of all things, a person dressed in a clown costume.
I would have dropped that little pass shit so fucking fast. Cluck! Cluck! Cluck!
My initial thought was that it was probably just someone doing a prank because of the trend.
That's your initial thought? That's your initial thought. So I'm guessing if you were to see the Five Nights at Freddy's movie that just came out, and after the movie, excuse me, you saw all the animatronics, excuse me, outside the movie theater, and you would have thought it was nah.
I must say, the costume appeared very realistic in detail, even if it was a joke. Needless to say, however,
Because how did he even get into school?
creeped me the hell out. I give a quick nod to the clown as I enter the girls' restroom, not thinking too much of it. As I'm doing my business, I hear the PA turn on in the hall and inform everyone that we were on lockdown. My heart sank into the pit of my stomach as I heard this and knew right then that it had to be because of the clown. That being said, I pull up my pants and as I look up, I see the clown's head peeking in above the stall. I let out what was probably the loudest scream I've ever done as I pushed open the door. The person in the clown costume obviously fell to the ground as I ran out of the bathroom. I ran straight to my teacher's room, practically begging for her to unlock the door so I could get in.
Tough! If I was a teacher, that's tough! Tough! Sorry, boo-boo. Sorry, Ashley. I can't help you. Hey, you remember how sweet you thought I was earlier in the story? Yeah, I'm not sweet no more. You thought shit was sweet, I'm not sweet no more. Hell no. You got all that, Ashley. Sorry. Bye, mother clucker. I'll see you tomorrow.
However, I knew she couldn't, as there was also a chance whoever that was would get in too. She told me from the other side of the door that I had to run and hide somewhere safe. I ended up running out of the hall and ran inside some electrical room that happened to be unlocked. The sound of a machine humming could be heard, so I figured that it would make it seem less likely that I was here. Suddenly, I then hear several sets of footsteps enter the building yelling police. I look through the vent on the door and see about 10 or so officers and a few SWAT guards surrounding the area. I felt safe, but I didn't want to come out with the possibility of startling them. 10 minutes go by, and I see them walk out of the building with two clowns in handcuffs, one of them being the one I saw. The other one had this sort of samurai machete thing that was in fact real. Turns out, these two clowns actually went to my school, but had gotten suspended for their behavior. They then went on to say that it was just for the trend, and that they didn't intend to actually harm anyone.
What?
However, police weren't buying it and arrested them no matter what the intentions were. After that, I eventually came out of the room and walked over to them to explain what had happened. They brought me into the main office, where I was with a faculty member until my parents arrived. As far as I know, those two boys were expelled from school and had served months in jail as they were 18. My parents ended up moving me to another school after that, and ever since then, I've always developed a fear of clowns. It took nearly half a year for the whole clown trend to die down. To be honest, I never really understood the hype around it. Even with that whole situation,
Where did that come from, anyways? Where did the whole clown epidemic come from? Was it because of a movie? Like, did Pennywise come out? Like, where did that come from? If anybody knows how that started, let me know in the comments.
I've heard of many reports of people encountering clowns and almost getting hurt. Thankfully, nothing like that has ever happened again. When I was in my mid-20s...
Worthington? Again, like, that's a weird, that's a club name. Worthington? So what you're saying is, if I don't get accepted in that high school, I'm not worthy? Is that what you're saying? So, Thor is the principal.
I got a job as a janitor at a local high school to make some extra cash for a car I wanted.
Janitors creep me the hell out.
It wasn't the best job, but it was good enough to support myself financially, as well as helping my parents with bills. My duties basically consisted of the usual tasks you would think a janitor does: mopping, sweeping, cleaning windows, etc. I worked only 4 days a week, which was a decent schedule and a chill job. Most of these days I'd end up working the night shift, but one day I had been called in for a day shift.
I got a question. As far as high school goes, and as far as like employees at a high school, you know, staff, crew, whatever, who was the last person to leave the school? Is it the janitor? I don't know.
The reason for this was because of some stupid prank that a few seniors had done for the end of the year. Every year, all of the seniors would throw what's called a senior prank, which was amusing to them, but definitely not the janitors. Long story short, it was a food fight, so me and another janitor, Todd, had to clean up the whole thing.
Damn.
Fortunately, this was around the time when all students had been in 5th period, so it was relatively quiet. It was just me and Todd that had the whole cafeteria to ourselves. Anyway, as I'm picking up the trash, the PA comes on, and it's the principal of the school.
What the?
She sounds terrified and out of breath for
Hold
whatever
on.
reason.
You can't just do that. You can't just run out of nowhere and haul ass to me, cause nah. Just like Cedric the Entertainer said in the original Kings of Comedy movie.
Nigga, we run when somebody else run. We don't be asked no questions while we running. We don't know why we running. We don't even need to know. We don't need no run coordinator to get all the running organized. Nigga, if I'm with you and you start running, well, damn it, I'm gonna start running. That's just how it go. Once we stop running, now find out what it was we was running about. You know I ain't lying, dog. We be in a group, dog. You don't even have to be paying attention, take off running. Nigga, you be in the middle of conversation. Yeah, nigga, so Keith and them.
You see somebody running, you gonna be like, hold on. Why are they running? What they running from? Hold on. And then you start getting ready, like, cause you know I'm running with you. I'm running with you, and then we're gonna ask questions after the fact. You know? Don't just stop and stand there and try to explain what's going on. Tell me after. Let's run together and tell me after.
And went on to say that this was a code red. My fellow janitor and I had been instructed to hide in the closet and to not leave until the all clear. We go inside the closet.
I just want to run it back a few, like a minute or so, because some don't make sense. Hold
on. PA comes on, and it's the principal of the school.
So who is this? I thought she was the principal. So who's running? If I was her, nah. I'm running, like, again, I'm not stopping for nobody. Like, I don't care if we best friends. I don't care if we family. I don't care if, like, I don't care what the relationship we got. I'm not stopping for nobody. When you in a lockdown, it's every person for themselves. Sorry.
She sounds terrified and out of breath for whatever reason, and went on to say that this was a code red. My fellow janitor and I had been instructed to hide in the closet and to not leave until the all clear. We go inside the closet, and I'm texting my mom that the school is locked down and that I didn't know what was going on. Minutes felt like hours waiting in the closet for something to happen. Suddenly, the main doors to the cafeteria open with full force.
Damn.
Looking up at the ceiling was a tall, pale woman just standing there, making these strange noises.
That big ass knife.
In her hand, a knife. She begins to walk around the cafeteria.
That's not, what do you call them knives? A butcher knife? I forgot what it's called. That's not a regular knife. That's a knife I feel like you could just cut right through bone with that shit.
These deranged phrases. Everything from come out wherever you are to I'll kill all of you.
Who you talking to?
It was pretty obvious that this woman was clearly mentally ill with possibly in possession of drugs.
Or she could not be ill and not possession of drugs, and she could be planning this. She could be doing this shit on purpose. She could be completely aware about what she's doing.
All of a sudden, my phone starts to ring like crazy, and I see that it's my mom who thankfully got my attention.
So, you gonna kill us all because you didn't want to put your phone on vibrate.
It also got the attention from the woman staring in the direction of the closet. Suddenly, I can start to see her slowly making her way toward the closet with the knife in hand. All the while, she's kind of just crouching while slowly walking as if she were trying to be stealthy. In that moment, I wasn't sure what I was going to do to protect myself. My initial thought was to somehow fight back, but we're in a small janitorial closet with little room. On top of that, I had no idea what she was capable of, especially when she had a knife. Seconds felt like hours as she made her way over to the closet door where I just prayed for the best. I shit you not, I actually felt like these were my last moments.
It's two of y'all, and you're guys. Just hold the door closed. I feel like that could work.
She was gonna come in here and kill us. I just knew it. Just as I was about to hopefully tackle this woman, I hear loud yelling coming from the main doors. Thankfully, police opened the doors with their guns drawn, telling her to get down and for Todd and I to come out slowly. After multiple attempts of her trying to resist arrest, the cops tased her, and it was then where she was put in cuffs. As it turns out, this woman had come into school through the main entrance and had assaulted both the principal and the woman working at the front desk. After all, this was in the mid-2000s, so the school couldn't afford to install proper security equipment, so we were essentially sitting ducks.
My ass.
While the school didn't have any security equipment, they apparently managed to get some grants to afford better security staff. While this was certainly an unfortunate situation, there's still one fact that always terrifies me. The only reason police were so quick to arrive was because there just so happened to be only one patrol car in the area. Keep in mind, the school was relatively far out in the suburbs and there wasn't a police station for a few miles. It just makes you wonder what would have happened had police arrived a minute later.
Shut up.
I'm thankful no one was hurt, and I'm not sure as to how that woman is doing today. But this was sure as hell one of the scariest situations I've ever been in. After that incident, I quit my janitor job and went back to school to pursue my degree in tech. Fast forward 15 years later, and I now work for a great design company where I was thankfully able to make a good living off it. However, there are times when this incident still comes back into mind while I sleep. I still sometimes tell my story to others, but I most of the time just keep it to myself.
I don't care how she's doing. As long as she's locked up and 6,000 miles away, I'm fine. That's in high school?
I was one of the luckiest kids in our high school that had the privilege of driving into school about halfway through the day. Our school day was divided into 9 periods, and because I had enough credits to graduate aside from a select few, I was always allowed to show up right before the 4th period. That was when my first class was. The day started out like any other. I woke up and got myself ready for school. I remember the steam pouring off my coffee cup was intense that morning, but the heat was a refreshing contrast to the cold bite of the winter air. I loaded everything up into my car and drove the 8 miles to get to my school. My phone kept going off, which was irritating because the notification sound kept interrupting the music playing from it. I ignored the messages and figured whatever it was could wait until I got to school. When I arrived, I noticed that something was off. The parking lot was full of cars, but no students. I mean, I knew it was a bit late in the day, but there were actually quite a few of us who would show up around the same time. At first, I didn't think anything of it. I just brushed it off and just assumed they had already made their way into the semi-warm school. So I decided to do the same. I grabbed my phone and my bag, locked my car, and walked.
So you're not gonna check it? I'm pretty sure it's a notification saying that the school is on lockdown. If it is, I don't know how the hell you got inside the school.
To the lobby, only to be met with silence. Something wasn't right. I looked at my watch, and it was 10:36 a.m. The hall should have been full of students who had been rushing to get to their next class. I didn't understand why at the time, but for some reason, the emptiness of the halls made everything feel tense. I began to walk a bit down the hall. That was when I noticed that all the classrooms...
You know what would be so dope? Is if there's a real lockdown in the school and everything that locked or that has a lock or that could be locked. Everything. That would be crazy. That would be dope. A real lockdown happens and everything gets locked. You don't have to worry about locking it yourself. Everything gets locked. That would have been crazy. They need that. They can do that. It's 2023. They can do that. Give me a second. I need to check something.
were shut, which was odd because most of the teachers liked to keep them open, as long as it wasn't too loud in the halls. Then all of a sudden, I remember the spam of messages I had gotten on my way into school. I almost threw my phone with how hard I ripped it from my pocket. I put in my passcode, and then came face to face with one of my biggest fears. My phone had 4 text messages from my friend who had been trying desperately to get in contact with me. The messages read in order: "Yo, something weird is going on. Hey man, are you on your way yet? Yo, don't come in." And the last message read: "Stranger in the halls. Teacher says he has a knife. Don't come in." My heart sank, and for a second, I couldn't catch my breath. Immediately, I began walking from one classroom to another, trying the handles on every door, but there was nothing. That's when I heard the sound of sneakers scuffing across the tile floor at the other side
Your
of the...
best bet is to leave that school. I would feel like you know how to navigate through that school than the person that's in then the what's the name? Then the cluck ass person that's here.
I knew I had to hide, but I didn't have many options. So I threw myself behind a row of lockers and tried to tuck my legs in. The footsteps grew closer. They had definitely made it into the section of the hallway when all of a sudden they stopped. I'll never forget the sound of his gravelly voice when he said, "Is that a leg I see?"
Oh no.
I panicked. I heard the footsteps start up again, growing closer with each passing second. I had to make a decision. I ran across the lobby of the school and threw open the doors to the auditorium. I didn't hesitate. Fight or flight kicked in, and it's like my legs knew where to bring me before I could even think of it. I ran all the way to the stage and made my way behind the curtain. As I tucked myself behind the curtain, I heard the door to the auditorium slam closed. He was inside the room with me. The footsteps drew closer and closer.
Keep moving, ass.
With each step growing louder. I began to look around for another place to run, when all of a sudden I heard the sound of a door opening behind me. When I looked, I was relieved to see one of the custodians. He was ushering me over to him, but kept one hand to his mouth as to tell me, "Stay quiet." As quickly and quietly as I could, I ran over to him and the two of us hid, locked in a supply closet for what felt like forever, as we heard the man pacing back and forth across the stage. After what felt like an eternity, but turned out to be only a couple of minutes, police arrived on the scene and the man fled. I had to give my statement to one of the officers. who told me I was lucky to have found the supply closet. Apparently, the man was carrying around a large hunting knife, and the other officer said he doesn't know what would have happened if I had been caught by him.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You just don't want to say it. Again, that's
I
fine.
was sitting in my earth science class near the window, as I often did. I made it a point to get to all my classes early, so I could get the best seat. That day, I would regret choosing to sit near the window though, as it would turn into a day that I would never forget. So, I was just sitting there, doing my best to pay attention to the lesson, when something caught my attention out of the corner of my eye. I could have sworn that I saw something move near the tree line. When I looked again, I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, so I just decided to go back to paying attention to the teacher. That was when I noticed it again. Only this time when I looked, I noticed that there was a grown man standing beside one of the pine trees that lined the field. He was just standing there in what appeared to be a dirt-covered clothing and a ski cap. I thought it was odd, so I raised my hand in hopes to bring it to the attention of my teacher. However, when we all turned to look out the window, there was no one there. The teacher told me to stop fooling around and just pay attention. So I did. I tried my best to wipe the entire experience from my mind. I finished out the school day and made my way home. I only lived about a half a mile from my high school, so I would usually walk home.
Oh my God.
I could have taken the bus if I wanted to, but I enjoyed the walk. I didn't enjoy it that day though. For some reason, I couldn't shake the feeling like I was being watched.
And you want to walk
I
home.
try my best not to be suspicious about it, but I
And your ass want to walk home. Shut the hell up.
slowly began increasing my walking speed. After what seemed like 10 times the usual distance, I finally made it home. And as soon as my house was in sight, I sprinted across my lawn and into my front door. I locked the door behind me and began to fill my mom in on my experience. She was quick to write it off as just me being on edge,
Shut up.
and assured me that everything was fine. I tried my best to agree with her on that, but something in my gut wouldn't let me settle down. After a very long day, it had finally hit 10 p.m., and it was time for me to go to sleep. But sleep never came. Instead, I kept tossing and turning in my bed. I could swear that I still felt someone watching me. After a couple of hours passed, I had begun to drift off, when out of the nowhere I heard what sounded like scratching on the glass. I immediately turned to my window, where I could swear I saw the edge of someone's shirt as they tucked themselves behind the wall. Before I could react, I heard my mom yelling for me. I leapt across my room and ran through my door, slamming closed as I passed. When I made it to my mom's room, she told me to close the door. After I did, with no questions asked, she said someone is outside of the house. My heart began to race. The police are on the way, just stay in here. My mom pulled out her phone and opened up the security camera. The man wasn't there anymore, but at a closer look, we could now see that my bedroom window has been opened. It wasn't long before the police arrived, though it felt like hours. By the time they got to my house, whoever it was had left. As I began to tell the police officers about the man I had seen at school earlier that day, he said that he and his partner would search the woods to see what they find. When they returned, I was horrified to find out they had found what they said was a homeless person's campsite. They said they also found a small journal with drawings of my classroom window, and at the last page, he had written, "It's time." To this day, no one knows who that man was or where he went. All I know is our dog has been sleeping in my room ever since.
This story happened my senior year of high school, which was about 5 years ago now. That year, they added this new room at the back part of the school.
So what you saying is the dog was in cahoots the whole time just to get the room to himself. That's crazy.
I can't remember the exact name they used for the room, but it was basically just an area with several computers and tables, and it was used for giving students extra help with school or making up tests and things like that. It had been made out of an old abandoned classroom that wasn't used for several years. At this time, I had been out of school for 2 days with an ear infection, and in that time, I missed a math test. When I returned to the math teacher, he allowed me to make up the test during study hall, so I went to that new room to take it. The teacher, Mr. Marcus, didn't want to have to go to the room and walk.
Hold on now. Go back. Go back for a second. Hold on now.
Ear infection, and in that time, I missed a math test. When I returned to the math teacher, he allowed me to make up the test during study hall, so I went to that new room to take it. The teacher, Mr. Marcus, didn't want to have to go to the room and watch me take the test, so he let me go by myself and said he trusted me not to cheat. I walked all the way over to the room, which was pretty much on the complete opposite.
Yeah, that's always something I would do. You know, I don't give a damn. You know, just as long as you pass this test, you fine by me.
Opposite end of the school. And once I got to the room, I sat down and began the test. It wasn't too long of a test, but it was a really important one. Right when I got to the third question, the telephone in the room started ringing. I didn't want to get up and answer it, but I figured it was probably Mr. Marcus. I walked over and picked it up. When I did, I was told we were under a lockdown and there was a suspicious person in the building. I was scared being all by myself back in this room with nobody else there, and there wasn't even a classroom next to me I could go to, because this classroom was between 2 locker rooms for the gym, which was also nearby. I did what I was instructed to do and shut the door. As I did, I decided to take a quick look out into the hallway. It was completely empty and quiet as well.
Okay, hide.
I went back in and decided to turn off the lights.
There you go.
I went out of sight of the door and went towards the back.
There you go.
Then I took out my phone and used the screen to give me some light to try to do more questions of the test. However, I couldn't really focus with us being in a lockdown. Suddenly, I heard the door
That test should be the least of your worries. You got some problems.
room that I was in open. It was at that moment that I remembered I hadn't locked the door. Quickly, I ducked down underneath the table that I was at. I could see just barely from under the table a small amount of light coming in from the doorway and saw boots on the ground.
Boots?
At least they appeared to be boots, as I couldn't really see much.
You saw boots?
I was terrified, and I held my breath so that I wouldn't make a sound.
Boots.
Whoever was in there stood in the doorway for a while, and then the door shut. I barely heard footsteps walking into the room.
Boots.
I was literally shaking, trying not to make a sound. The room then went completely silent and remained that way. I slowly breathed in and out as quietly as I could. I was expecting at any moment to feel someone grab me from behind or something like that. But then, out of nowhere, I heard the sound of a computer falling off a desk to the ground. Then I heard the noise of a man yelling and screaming. It seemed as though whoever was in this room had gone into a rage and was screaming and smashing things. I opened my eyes and looked over. I still couldn't really see anything, but I could hear where all the noise was coming from, and it was at the opposite end of the classroom to my left. I was terrified and knew I needed to get out of there. The exit was directly in front of me and to the right, and the noises were directly in front of me to the left, so I figured I had to make a run for it. I took a deep breath, and then got out from under the desk and ran as fast as I could, as whoever was in there continued to seemingly destroy things in the room. I ran forward to the door and was just barely able to see where I was going. I stumbled into a chair just before the door, but I was still able to make it out. I heard the man yelling as I left the room and sprinted down the hallway. I ran all the way to the front end of the school, where I saw a police officer. I yelled where the guy was and that he was destroying things. Another officer led me out of the school. After some time, I was able to calm down and they ended up catching the man. I got to go home right after that. I feel so lucky that I made it out of that room, because obviously whoever was in there was very dangerous.
I feel like I'm still thinking about what I said about if the school is ever on a lockdown, that everything should be locked. That everything that has a lock or that could be locked should be locked. Like automatic. So you don't have to do anything, you know? And then the only ones that can unlock it is the principal, vice principal. Do what? Schools have vice principals, right? Either the principal, the vice principal, or the person underneath them. But not like a regular student. I mean, not a regular like teacher or employee. It has to be like somebody like up there.
In my freshman year of high school, during the first semester, I had a civics class as my last class of the day. The school that I went to was pretty average size, I would say. I remember the class that I was in had about 20 kids in it. It was a couple of months into the school year at this point, and on this Thursday afternoon, we were all just listening to the teacher go through some announcements, when suddenly the phone in the classroom rang. The teacher, Mrs. Lindstrom, walked over and answered it. Then she hung up and told us all that the school was going under a lockdown. She seemed pretty serious and told us that this was not a drill. She locked her classroom door and then turned out the lights and instructed us to the back end of the classroom. We all got up from our desks and went to the back. There was a lot of whispering going on, but nobody seemed to know why we were under a lockdown. The longer we all sat back there, the more concerned everyone seemed to get, which made me start to worry. I started thinking of all the possibilities of what could be going on.
Why are you on your knees?
It got really quiet after a while, and at one point, we heard footsteps going down the hallway, but we didn't know whose they were. The lockdown went on for probably 30 more minutes before there was another call to the classroom announcing that the lockdown had been ended. We returned to class for the final 15 minutes or so.
My ass.
But the only thing on my mind was what could have caused it. School was dismissed after that, and I left school to get on my bus. When I got outside the school, I noticed several police cars with flashing lights. Everyone was talking about the lockdown, and I heard several rumors about what it was. But it wasn't until later that night where I got the real answer. My friend Robbie, whose mother worked at the school, told me that the lockdown had been caused by a student who claimed to see a strange man wandering the halls. However, after an extensive search of the school, one of the back doors was seen to be open, and it was determined that the man had left. The area was briefly searched, but the man was never found. The next day, when I went back to school, everything seemed to be pretty normal. By the time I got to third hour, I had forgotten all about what had happened the day before. It was a Friday, so I was pretty much just excited to go to the football game that night. In the middle of my third hour class, which was history, I had to go to the bathroom. I knew the teacher was one of the nicer ones, who didn't require a pass or anything, so I just asked and she allowed me to go. I walked down the halls of the bathrooms, which are towards the end. As soon as I opened the door and got inside, I came face to face with a man who I had never seen before. He was wearing a winter hat and had long black hair and a small beard. He looked really surprised to see me. We both stood there staring at each other for a second or two. Then the man came
I
towards...
just realized who's the voice? Is it Nighttime Spooks? He sounds similar to him. And it's also refreshing because I think this is Mort. This is Mort's animation. It's also refreshing to hear other people. It's so nice, like at least like in the horror community on YouTube, to have people collaborating with other people. That's dope. Like to hear other people's voice on other like different animations and different stories, and that's awesome.
And I turned and ran. I ran back to class.
I would love to animate. I mean, I would love to voice something. You know, I never did voiceover like professionally, like this. But you know, I love to do something like that. You know, I feel like my name may come up in the horror community. I'm not entirely sure.
I got back, I told my teacher what I had seen, and the school once again went on another lockdown. This time we stayed locked down for over an hour. I was terrified, but finally it ended, and afterwards everyone was allowed to go home early. They told us the man had finally been caught. But what I don't understand is how they didn't find him the first time the school was locked down.
I'm saying.
What he was doing inside there in the first place.
That's it? Oh, shit. Okay. All right, so just tell me if it's a great idea or not. Like, The school has a lockdown, and as soon as the principal, whoever, you know, says it's a lockdown, the whole entire school literally locks down. You know, you don't have to worry about locking no doors. You don't got to worry about, you know, any of that. Like, if something is already closed, it's automatically going to get locked. Yeah, I like that idea. But it baffles me, you know, how sometimes something either something fatal or clucked up would happen in the school, and it was like they'd be like, now it's time to get cameras, or now it's time to get security. You already should have had that. America's a dangerous ass country. Please. But that's all I gotta say about that. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy. My family.